Hello and welcome to our Teaching for Success Inclusive podcast series. I'm your host, Rosa Kemirembe. Today we are talking about something that should be at the heart of every classroom, every lesson plan, every conversation about the future of our country, Uganda. The girl child. Recently, His Excellency President Yoweri Museveni spoke at the International Women's Day celebrations and underscored the role of education and skilling the girl child in empowering women. He reminded us that when the NRM government introduced university primary education and universal secondary education, it was girls who benefited the most because they had been the ones kept at home while resources went to boys. He said, and I quote, "When someone is educated, he or she cannot be suppressed." That is a powerful statement, but it also raises a question that we rarely ask in public forums. Is the education we're giving our girls today truly equipping them to stand in leadership, to build wealth, to demand justice, and to shape the economic development of their communities? And more importantly, what about the girl who sits in a rural classroom with no textbooks, a teacher who has not been paid in months, no clean water, no hope of ever stepping into a university, or a technical college or a vocational college? Is that education enough to free her from suppression? Today, we're going beyond the headlines. We're going to talk about what must be embedded inside education itself, inside the curriculum, inside the daily work of teaching, so that every girl child, especially those in under-resourced schools, are not excluded from economic development, leadership, justice, equity, and social economic transformation. Let us move from talking to doing. Let me start with a reality check. The president spoke about free education, affirmative action points for girls at university, and laws against harmful practices like early marriage and defilement. All of that is very true and very important. But the reality in many schools in Uganda, especially in rural Uganda, and even in parts of surrounding areas like Entebbe, is that a girl may be enrolled, but she is not truly learning. I have visited schools where a single classroom holds over 100 pupils or students, where the teacher to student ratio is 1:80, where girls miss 4 days of school every month because there are no sanitary pads available for them. The latrine does not have a door that locks, or it does not have a door at all. Where the teachers struggle to feed their own children because the salary delays have become the norm in our schools today. In such an environment, a certificate is earned, but the skills, confidence, and networks that turn education into power are completely absent. So when we say we want to empower the girl child through education, we must be honest. Education as it is currently delivered in many places does not automatically produce leaders, entrepreneurs, or advocates. It produces survivors. And survival is not the same as success. So, what do we do to change this? Not by adding new subjects that overload teachers, not by weaving essential knowledge and skills into the subjects we already teach. I want to suggest 4 areas that should be embedded into the curriculum from primary to secondary if we truly want girls to claim their place in economic development, leadership, justice, and equity. In primary, mathematics, instead of abstract numbers, should be taught to our students. We should teach girls how to calculate profit from a small poultry project, how to save in a village savings group, how to budget for a family or a school event. In secondary school, every girl should be exposed to basic entrepreneurship, cooperative management, and how to access credit. These are not vocational courses in the old sense. They are giving a girl the language and the confidence to say, I can generate income. I can manage money. I own assets. When a girl understands economics from her classroom, she is less likely to be trapped in dependence. We teach civics and social studies, but too often it's memorizing the structure of government. What if from primary 5 onwards, students were required to lead a real project, a tree planting campaign, a sanitation drive, a school garden competition? And in leading the project, they're explicitly taught how to speak in public, how to resolve conflict, how to advocate for resources. Girls need to practice leadership in a safe space before they are thrust into the world that often tells them to be quiet or do not want to listen to them. Leadership is not a trait you are born with. It is a skill you build through practice. The president mentioned strict punishments for defilement and rape, but a girl cannot seek justice if she does not know her rights, if she does not know where to report the crime, if she does not understand that her body belongs to her. We can embed this in English language lessons by reading stories of girls who challenged harmful traditions. We can embed it in religious education by discussing dignity and equality. We can embed it in science by teaching bodily autonomy in age-appropriate ways. From primary to secondary, the message must be repeated. You have rights. There are laws and systems to protect you. This is not just a concept. It means connecting classroom learning to the real community, making the community around your school an extension of your classroom. When a secondary school class studies geography, they can go out and analyze why their village has low crop yields. They can interview women farmers. They can learn about value addition and present a proposal to a local council. That teaches critical thinking, collaboration, and shows girls that they are not passive recipients of development. They can be architects of it. Now, someone listening might say, Rosa, this sounds very good, but how do we do this in schools that lack basic resources? Where there are no libraries, no computers, teachers are barely surviving? That's a fair question, and it gets to the heart of the matter. We cannot talk about curriculum reform without also talking about the conditions in which teachers work and children learn. You cannot ask a teacher who has not been paid in 3 months, who is worrying about rent and school fees for their own children, to creatively integrate financial literacy and leadership into their lessons. The first investment that we need to make is in our teachers. Timely payment of salaries. Good salaries, because they deserve them. There's no one who would have the job that they have today without teachers, especially those who are earning lots of money and are in high positions and high roles. You wouldn't get to where you are without teachers. So teachers need to be given credit where it's due, not by just saying they're wonderful people and important people in our society, but by showing it to them in action. Pay them what they deserve. Housing. Meaningful professional development that is practical, not just theoretical workshops. Secondly, we must ensure that the school environment itself does not undermine the girl child. A girl who spends hours fetching water before school, who has no toilet that locks, who is hungry because they have no school meal, cannot focus on leadership skills. And hey, come on people, we're not just talking about you in the city where some of you, all of this is like, what? This actually happens to people. Your children go to school, well fed, they have books, they have lunch. It's not the same for everyone. And believe it or not, the majority of the country has schools that are lacking these facilities, have schools that are going through this. Let's not be so focused on Kampala and what's going on around it. There's a whole wide world and a whole wide country that exists outside the city walls of Kampala. So government developers and communities must prioritize water, sanitation, menstrual health management, and school feeding programs. Yes, school feeding programs. Even in Canada, schools, a first world country, has school feeding programs because they are students who come to school hungry and cannot afford food. They don't have lunches, some of them. A lot of them come to school without breakfast, and you cannot learn without food in your belly. These are not separate from education. They are the foundation upon which meaningful learning is built. But even with limited resources, there are things we can do. You can teach financial literacy using stones and beans to simulate savings. You can teach leadership by giving the school prefect system real responsibilities and a small budget to manage. Or they can be involved in managing the school budget as a project with the guidance of staff. You can invite a woman from the village who runs a small business to speak to the girls for free. That costs nothing, but shows the girls that success is really possible in our country today. Not just for a few, but for a lot of girls. Let me give you two concrete examples of how this can work inside of the classroom. One for primary and one for secondary. In a primary school, suppose the class is learning about measurement in mathematics. Instead of just measuring lines on paper, the teacher can say, today we're going to measure the school garden. We will decide how many cabbage seedlings we can plant, or beans. We will calculate the cost of seedlings and the expected profit we will sell at the market. The girls work in mixed groups, but the teacher deliberately ensures that girls take turns in leading the group. By the end, they have learned math, they have learned entrepreneurship, and they have practiced leadership. Simple. And the school ends up with a crop that can improve feeding or raise funds. That is correcting curriculum to real life. In a secondary school, take a subject like entrepreneurship or geography. The class can study a local value chain. If the school is in an area where women sell fish or vegetables, the students can go out, or it could be a man selling fish or vegetables. The students can go out and interview these people, learn about the challenges they face, and propose a simple cooperative model. They can then present their findings to local leaders or to a savings group. That teaches research, public speaking, financial planning, and it shows girls that economic development is not something that just happens in Kampala or in the big cities. It happens in their own community and they can be a part of it. When lessons are connected to real life, girls stop seeing school as a place of abstract exams. They start seeing it as a launch pad. And for the girl who might not go on to university, that launch pad is everything. I want to emphasize that we are not only talking about girls in well-resourced urban schools. The girl in a remote rural school with no electricity, displaced in a community, who is the first in her family to go to school. These are the girls who are most at risk of being left behind, and they are hundreds and thousands of them. For them, embedding these skills is even more urgent. When a girl in a poor community learns financial literacy, she can help her family diversify income. When she learns about her rights, she can resist early marriage. When she practices leadership, she can become the first woman village councillor in her area. The curriculum must speak to her reality, not to an idealized version of what education looks like. That means using local examples, local languages, and local mentors. It means ensuring that even in the most under-resourced school, there is a teacher who sees her potential and gives her the tools to claim her future. So let me bring this together. The president is right that education is fundamental, but education must be more than just enrollment and free school. It must be more than passing exams. For the girl child to achieve economic independence, to lead, to access justice, and to participate fully in social and economic development, we must embed 4 things into the curriculum from primary to secondary school: financial literacy, economic agency, leadership, civic engagement, justice and rights awareness, and real-world connections to community development. And we must do this while also investing in teachers, in school infrastructure, and in the dignity of every girl. Because a girl who is hungry, who is afraid, who has never been taught that she can lead, will remain suppressed no matter how many policies we pass, no matter how much we talk about it. To the teachers listening, you are the ones who make this real. You do not need to wait for a new curriculum document to come up. You can start tomorrow with a garden project, with a story that sparks a conversation, with a leadership role for a quiet girl. To the parents and school administrators, ask yourselves, is our school preparing girls to earn, to lead, to speak up? To the policymakers, let curriculum reform come with the resources and teacher support that makes it possible. You can have the best curriculum created ever, but it is not going to work if there are no resources to implement it and there is no teacher support to make it possible. Remember, education that does not equip a girl with the tools to build her own future is not liberation. It is just a longer road to the same old limits. Let us choose to give every girl child an education that truly sets her free, not just by putting her in a school. Thank you for listening to this episode of our Teaching for Success Inclusive podcast series. I am your host, Rosa Kemerembe. Until next time, let us build the education our girls deserve.